So I'm going to be bringing on our first guest. She's been on the show before, but it's been a little while. I checked back to see the last time that she was on the show, and it was actually the show we had on my birthday, which is June 20th in 2023. That was the last time Marita was on the show. So she has a new book that just came out a couple of weeks ago, I think, and she's going to tell us about that and all the other work she's been doing since we saw her last. So, Marita, welcome back to Black Authors Matter TV.
Let me unmute.
Okay.
Can you hear me?
Yes, yes,
Okay.
clearly.
Okay,
Yes,
good.
yes.
Thank you.
Well, welcome back to the show and congratulations on your latest book. And you don't write fluff in terms of when you write something that's really meaningful and impacts people. And this latest book, I thought it was more of a how-to instructional book, but when I read more about it, it's kind of like that in a quasi memoir too, if I'm not mistaken. But it's behind you. So do you have a copy you can put in front of the screen? I see it on the shelf behind you. How to Become a Black Writer. And I thought that was an intriguing topic. So first, is this a quasi memoir?
It is. It's a look at my 40-year career as a writer and as a literary activist. And it starts with my father telling me bedtime stories about heroes and heroines from Black history. And he was my first writing teacher. And it goes into my years in college at the journalism school at Columbia University. I was young, gifted, and Black in the 70s in New York City. And that's where I met Audre Lorde, who told me that my poetry was good to keep writing. When I was in college, Nikki Giovanni published one of my poems in a collection that she edited. And I subsequently wrote for Essence Magazine in the early days, and then began my career as the author of now 22 books. And along the way, founded the Hurston Wright Foundation, which is now celebrating 35 years.
Wow. So you've done a lot of things, not just being a writer, but I guess that's where it started. And what makes your story different from a lot of other people's stories is that your dad read to you. Most
Yeah,
people,
can
if
I?
someone was
Yeah.
reading to them, it was their mother reading or a female reading. And
Yeah.
your dad read to you. And now, was he a teacher or what was his
Well, you know
background?
what? My father didn't read to me. My father told me these stories.
Oh, he told you.
He
Okay, I
told,
thought he was
and
reciting the
can I
stories.
read a minute excerpt from the book
Sure,
that
sure.
introduces readers to my father?
This is your world.
Yeah. I'm 9 years old, lying beneath the blanket in my twin-size bed. A dull prick of light shimmers in the room's darkness as I eagerly resist sleep, waiting to be transported. Soon my bedroom will become a stage. My father sits beside me in a straight back chair. The scent of his cigar scented skin pulls me close. My father's skin is dark, dark like night. Yet I see him inside the shadows that fill the room as he clears his throat, the signal that a story is about to begin. Tonight, the story is about a woman named Harriet Tubman, a woman who was enslaved. My father often takes me on nocturnal expeditions to meet Black people who made and changed history. People I often have not learned about in school. Men and women who, under the spell of my father's voice and words, I imagine and see on the walls and ceiling of my room, loving their families, running to freedom, standing tall and brave in the soil of this place called history that my father makes real for me on nights like this. These stories were my good night, my sleep tight. My father guided me along a historical underground railroad. Did my father know he was creating a writer? Did he know he was teaching me the elements of a good story, of powerful storytelling and writing? A person is tested, an obstacle overcome. Did he know he was teaching me how to be a sorcerer of language? On those storytelling nights, the people I met became my kin. The places he took me, my home. So that's
Oh,
how the book begins. And that's where else would you start? And not only that, Gwen, but I was raised in Washington, D.C., and
okay.
I grew up on a street, Harvard Street, in a section of Washington called Columbia Heights.
I lived
And
in Washington. I don't know
okay,
if you knew that. I went to Georgetown. So
oh,
I was
okay,
there for those 4 years and then 2 years after.
okay,
I'm
okay.
familiar with Columbia
We
Heights.
couldn't get you to stay.
Well, I tell people I got to Texas following a fool. That's a whole nother story for another night.
Well,
Wait.
I grew up at 1450 Harvard Street.
Okay.
Now, 4 decades before I was born, at 1422 Harvard Street, the great writer of the Harlem Renaissance, Jean Toomer, was raised on the same street that I spent part of my childhood. Now, he was raised in that house by his grandfather, P.B.S. Pinchback, who was the first and
Okay.
only governor of Louisiana during Reconstruction.
Oh,
Now, I did
wow.
not know any of this until many years after I'd started my writing career, and I was honored with a plaque on that street that cited an excerpt from my book about Columbia Heights and
Okay.
noted that Jean Toomer grew up on that street. So I had to become a writer with a father like that and a mother who told me I was going to write a book one day. And then growing up the same street with Jean Toomer,
Right. Now, what did your parents do?
my father was a
Professionally?
taxi driver.
Okay. Well, see, there that shows you that you don't have. See, I assume sort of, and I'm sure a lot of other people would that he maybe was a teacher or something, but you can teach yourself and read no matter what you do for a living. It's available to you really now on your phone. So you don't even have to go anywhere to read books. Um, you can do it on your phone. I prefer reading. I prefer paper, but uh, I was reading it on my Kindle for a while. But doing this show took me back to paper because I like one. I can better support the authors if I buy their books, and also I give books away on the show too sometimes. So I just went back to paper, and I prefer it. And when I have a stack of books, is to me is more impactful to show somebody, okay, these are the books that I'm recommending, like to a book club. If you have the actual books, it's not the same impact on the Kindle. If you
Mhm.
have the books, they're just
Well,
beautiful, the lines,
also,
the colors. I
well,
love it.
also reading on a Kindle is not the same as reading a book because your brain processes more information from a book than from an electronic device.
Right. And your retention is better as
Yeah.
well.
Yeah.
So and that's science. So but so your book, now where do you when you talk about your upbringing and all that, then where do you go from there in the book? Is it strictly a memoir
Well,
or
in the book, I talk about how I learned to be a writer, about the writing workshops I took.
okay.
I write about the wonderful mentors that I had, Audre Lorde, June Jordan, Nikki Giovanni. When I was at the journalism school at Columbia, I was studying for the first time in my academic career with Black teachers. I mean, really high, Phil Garland, who was an editor at Ebony magazine and the first Black woman to be a tenured professor at Columbia J School. So I was mentored and encouraged by some of the most brilliant, smartest people about writing out there. So it really matters where you live and the kind of education you get, because you can bring into your sphere powerful mentors who will encourage you and give you the confidence to keep writing. And then for many years, I taught writing at George Mason University, at
Okay.
Virginia Commonwealth University.
Okay.
Um, and I write about teaching because I love teaching. I teach now at the University of Marita Golden. And people say, "Is that a real university?" I say, "Yeah, yeah, look on the internet. It's a real university." And I love teaching with my own classes and my online workshops. I'm having more fun than I ever had in the academy. So, through my personal story, you understand what it takes to become a writer. Marie Brown, who is a woman who was one of the first Black editors in the white publishing industry, and who either edited or agented probably three generations of Black writers, including me. She read the book and she said in the early draft, and she said, make sure that you tell people how you did the things you did. Like when you say that you took a workshop at the new school, tell them that you researched to find that you asked people where you could study. Because I find a lot of times today that young people who want to write, even though they're on the internet, they're very disconnected from information and they're disconnected from each other.
That is so true. The more seemingly social we are, the less personal it is. You can have people that are connected to you or follow you on social media, but they're not your friends. They're not people that you can rely on or count on, or now some of them may become actual friends in the physical, but normally you have to meet them for that to
Well,
happen.
in my workshops, which are virtual, before the pandemic, I was all in person. I did an occasional Zoom workshop. Now I'm strictly
You're
Zoom, which,
strictly
and I
Zoom.
like it because I can reach people all
All
over.
over. All over the
Um,
world. Mhm.
Yeah. And many times I encourage the people in my workshops, after you take this workshop, stay in touch with one another, start a support group. So I had a workshop a couple of years ago, and the women in that group started meeting on their own. And they would meet now, they would meet every Sunday to free write for an hour. So they did this for 2 or 3 years. And they said, you know what? We want to meet in person. So they all decided to meet one Sunday in Philadelphia. So, and I love that story. And I did a workshop this past Saturday at a local library. Before I read from the book and talked about it, I did a short writing workshop. And I was so pleased that after the workshop concluded, the participants were out in the hallway exchanging contact information because I said, look, you want support, you want a network, it's right here.
Well, one thing about social media that is good, you can connect with people with similar interests
Mhm.
easily, much more easily than you could in the past. I'll give you an example. My daughter loves cats, and she's had a cat since she was a little girl. She has a cat now. She's 20, she'll be 29 on her birthday. Oh, no, 20. How old is she? 28 on her birthday? 7. I think she'll be 28 on her birthday. Anyway, um, she's part of a Facebook group of Black women who love cats. And they all post pictures of them with their cats and share cat stories. So I mean, and she said I forget, she said there were maybe 10,000 women in that group.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, there's definitely community, but it's a different kind of
I mean,
community.
yes.
And
Mhm.
it doesn't substitute for in-person connections. And that's where young people have they spend so much time on their devices that they don't know how to be present with one another. And so that's a skill that's lost. But the wonderful thing about reading is that reading can connect you to different worlds and different people.
Yeah, there's been some science or studies on that, how the younger generation, their social skills have been hampered.
Mhm.
They didn't, like we were taught to look people in the eye. There's certain things that you do when you meet someone face to face. And there was a video that circulated, I'm sure there's more than one, that circulated. It was it was at a bar or club. It was old school black people and younger black people. And the people on the dance floor were the older people, 50-ish, and then the younger people are all on their phones, just sitting down, scrolling. They were all with their heads in their phones. And, that's too much of going one way too far is not good.
Mhm.
And you need social skills in this world for everything.
Mhm. Yeah. Well, writing my 22 books has been a wonderful adventure. Um, the novels have given me the opportunity to use my imagination in incredible ways. And the memoirs, because I've written a number of memoirs about my own life, have given me a deeper understanding of my own personal experience. And so I've often said, I don't even know how I would understand my life if I hadn't written so much about it, because it's been creative and it's been therapeutic. And right now I'm leading a 6-month workshop, a group of women who are writing their memoirs. And
Oh,
we're gonna
okay.
take a break, and then we're gonna start part two in late spring. But these are wonderful, wonderfully talented women, women of a certain age who have incredibly important stories to tell. And so we're living at a time where people feel they have the right to write. I just want people to feel they have the right to read also.
Yes, that's important. Now, of your 22 books, you said you have 22. What percentage are fiction versus nonfiction?
Well, I've written 6 novels. The rest are nonfiction, either anthologies or
Okay.
or memoirs and collections. And I like to go back and forth because like when I did the memoir Don't Play in the Sun, one woman's journey through the color complex, that was about colorism.
Hmm.
And I wrote it at the time that India Ari came out with her song Video and Brown Skin.
Okay.
And so I got an opportunity to write about what my life had been like as a brown skinned woman dealing with colorism. But I also interviewed other people. I interviewed light skinned Black people, dark skinned light people. I did research. I examined, popular culture. And it was very satisfying to write that book because I got so many responses from people all over the country and all over the world. I got a letter from a woman in Algeria, for example. Algeria, which is a North African country, is basically desert. And she said her mother didn't want her to go out in the sun because she was going to get too dark. Now, if you go outside in Algeria, you're going to get
If
dark.
it's
And
desert.
so it's a
Uh-huh.
global thing, you know?
Hmm.
So, and then my novels have been very, very diverse. My last novel was The Wide Circumference of Love, about a family dealing with Alzheimer's. And I spent several years researching that because that wasn't something that in my family I dealt with. And for that, I interviewed families who are caring for someone with Alzheimer's. I even spent time in a memory care unit with people who have Alzheimer's. And it was very, very satisfying to write a book like that. And it meant a lot to people who read it.
Yeah, a lot of times people don't realize that even when you write a novel, there's still research involved
Mhm.
if you're writing it well,
Mhm.
especially if you're dealing with a particular topic that you're delving into, like you said there, or if it's historical, even if it's even if the characters aren't real people.
Mhm.
If you're going back in history, you need to be accurate in terms of the language, the
Yeah,
clothing,
yeah,
what was happening at the time
right, right.
and the mores. So research is important in writing a novel, um,
And
if it's
probably the
done
most,
right.
yeah, probably the most important thing I've written lately is not a book, but in light of the very disturbing, to some of us, changes that are happening in the country right now, I wrote kind of a little meditation, a manifesto, which I sent out to my email people. And basically, I think this is a time where I tell people if you are concerned about the future, if you're wrestling with despair and confusion, this is the time to be in community. If you're a writer, this is the time to write the book that you've been afraid to write. Write it now. Um, it's very important to be in community with other people now because we've never needed each other more than we need each other right now. And so I think it's important to, in this period where many of us see darkness, to bring light.
Well, I think that's always good, um, because people do need the sense of community.
Mhm.
And oh, I want to appreciate someone who is helping tonight, one of our viewers, because Rhonda can't be on the show. And Stephanie Burnham, I see what you're doing and I appreciate you kind of standing in because Rhonda does some things on the background and she couldn't be on tonight. So the book just came out. So what have you like? What has been your experience so far going around? Have you done any book signings
Yeah,
and
yeah. I've done quite a few things locally here in the Washington, D.C. area. And I'm going to be at the Dallas Literary Festival, and I'm going to be at the Austin African American Book Festival in June. And
okay,
yeah, yeah. And
okay.
people, and I think one of the mo things I'm most proud of is starting the Hurston Wright Foundation, because for 35 years, we have been creating opportunities for Black writers, honoring them, offering workshops. And so if anybody out there in the audience wants to know more about what we offer, go to Hurston Wright, like Zora Neale Hurston and Richard Wright, hurstonwright.org. And as I say, we're going to be coming up with some major, major new exciting announcements this year as we go to the 35th anniversary in October.
Now, what made you start the foundation? What led you in that direction?
Well, I'm an activist. It's kind of in my blood. And around the time that I was teaching in the university in the early 90s, a lot of Black writers were getting published. And I was in an MFA program, a Master's of Fine Arts program, and I just wanted to do something to support this growing, growing community of Black writers. I mean, I had been supported by people like Audre Lorde, Toni Morrison, and now it was my turn to support. So we started with an annual award for college writers, and then we blossomed into a summer writers workshop, and then we blossomed into the Legacy Award. So we have reached Black writers globally, not just in this country, and we honor Black writers from the diaspora. And it makes a huge difference because when they come to our workshops and our programs, they're in community with Black writers. They don't have to explain what they're writing because everybody in the room gets it.
So, if someone wants to find out more about the summer workshop, they go to the website that you mentioned
Yeah,
and
Hurston
see
Wright.
the
And if they want to know more about what I'm doing, maritagolden.com.
okay. So, and then if they want to sign up for some of your writing, how often do you offer the writing sessions?
I offer them probably once every 3 months. So if they get on my email list, they will get information about upcoming workshops.
And what all do you do in the workshop? Like, is it well, one, is it every week? Is that
Well, for
how?
example, with the Black Women Writing Memoir, we started in October and we meet twice a month. They have books to read. They read each other's work so that when we come together, we're discussing the book, the memoirs that we've read, and we discuss their writing. And these are often people who've already been writing or have a half of a manuscript, and they're very, very supportive of one another. So they learn about craft, they learn how to revise, they learn how to write a first draft. They learn by reading books that have already been published successfully. They learn what good writing is. And we discuss, one of the women said, I know how to read. I never knew how to read before this class. I never knew how to read a book.
Okay, I have one final question. What is different about memoir writing versus other writing? For example, fiction writing or even nonfiction research-based writing.
Well, in memoir, you are taking the material of your life and you are meditating on its meaning, but at the same time, you're trying to make it into a story that at its best almost reads like a novel. I will tell people that when you're writing a memoir, you want it to feel like a novel. When you're writing a novel, you want it to feel like a memoir. So the two forms have a lot in common, even though one is fictional, it includes a lot of your personal life and views, and the other is factual, but you will often use fictional aspects to tell the story. So there's overlay, but they are very different. One thing with a memoir is you want to tell people who are going to be in it that you're writing it.
If they're living.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
For your protection and your insurance. Yeah.
yeah, I don't think I'll ever write one. I don't want to say never, but um my other books that I write have me in them, even though they're not memoirs.
Mhm.
They have my point of view. They have some of my experiences. They even have people that I've encountered, but I
Mhm.
make them fictional characters if it's a novel. Or I make them an example, but I don't name them. But if a situational thing that is relevant to whatever the premise is of the book that I'm writing. So I was just, but I don't think I'll do the memoir thing. I don't know because my life would really, really be an interesting story, but I don't know if I want people to know about it. So
Sure.
some things,
That's your right. You don't have
yeah.
to write a memoir. Yeah.
Yeah. Or you can leave some parts out.
Yeah.
You don't have to tell everything. I'm sure. So anyway, Marita, you are always a blessing to everyone in
Thank
terms
you,
of just
Gwen.
all that you sow into the literary community. And we really appreciate you being on the show and show your book close to the camera one more time so people can see how to become a Black
And
writer.
it's not just for writers. It's for people who love to read. It's for people who want to read a story about a little girl who grew up and all of her dreams came true.
Okay. All right. Well, thanks again and
Thank
have a
you,
great
dear.
evening.
Thank you.
Okay. Good night.